Is it the internet that has destroyed the human attention span then?
I think the internet to some degree, but I would zoom in further, I think, to social media.
Yeah.
And I think it's not even specific to the internet and social media, but to the generation and age at which people are exposed to it.
Right.
Because I'm 47. I don't know,
38.
Yeah. But I think we were just on the cusp of going through puberty and adolescence before
media,
being exposed to it. Yeah. And I think you don't have a fighting chance if you grow up with that.
Yeah.
Like your brain doesn't develop.
Your brain is wired into it almost completely. Like, yeah, because it was a weird phase when Instagram was becoming popular when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. And even then, you're not like fully hardwired. So you're still feeling the effects of this thing kind of socially, but growing up on it, I mean, I don't have kids that age yet, but from what I've heard secondhand from parents, it's like children are fully wired into it, right? It is their world.
Yeah.
And not just social media, but these other things, Fortnite and these video game.
So the science behind it, I've done a pretty deep dive in this, having a 9-year-old and sort of prepping for that future. For girls, it's generally Instagram and TikTok that are wildly damaging. Obviously because of the ideal body image or what the algorithm starts to naturally feed them is usually about dieting and exercise and causes tremendous issues. For boys, it's less Instagram and TikTok and more video games. But those video games. So the video games we played when we were kids were simple enough that they didn't rewire your brain and there was always an ending. It's the games that are endless, where you're existing in another world, in a metaverse where there's no end. And you can build sort of a separate identity and life and false friendships. And that's what has been shown to be sort of the killer for the males. But also I think that in this world, and this is all the science as well, there's great books on this, but is that men don't grow up with the sense of empowerment and like male identity because of that. They end up, millennials, and it actually all goes back to inflation and money and jobs and lack of power, that they grow up sort of in this world where they feel like the world is against them, weak, and it's really kind of rewired the way that men view themselves. So it's the body identity and comparing yourself to others with the women, and for men, it's just a sense of like lack of self-worth.
So there's like no purpose or meaning to be had in the IRL for young men. So instead they find it in infinite video games.
And not that's a good thing, but no wars and no groups to identify with. And I think that's why you see the strange sort of social phenomenon that we see, people grappling onto causes that are conflicting with one another and no deep understanding of why they are. It's just a sense of wanting to be a part of something and never having been. Like when we were kids, you were on a team, and if you sucked, you sat on the sideline and you learned to lose, and but you had camaraderie and stuff, and most kids grow up thinking that the kid in their Discord server that they're calling a noob on whatever video game they're playing is that same friend, and that's not the kid you're playing soccer with. Right. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's what Jeff Booth always says, that everyone just wants love and belonging. And I guess if you can't find that in the real world, then you're just going to go find that in virtual worlds. But it's the other thing that's interesting to me. I actually just had a guy in here before you who had a career in professional wrestling, and he was talking a lot about how the line between truth and reality gets really blurred. And actually, they tried to blur the line between truth and reality in professional wrestling to make it more interesting. And it seems like that is happening with these digital technologies. It's like the line between truth and reality is melting. People start to take social media as much more real life experience than real life itself. But then in a way, social media obviously does influence real life. So it's like a grand uncontrolled social experiment. Where is this going to be looked at as like the smoking of our day, 20 years from now? We're going to look back and be like, oh, we were completely fucking up our brains with all these things, and we need to pass laws
because
and
we might be
regulate it?
Literally in the metaverse. It might be like that cartoon movie WALL-E, where it's a bunch of fat people on little carts with screens talking to each other. That's more likely than... the pendulum always swings, right? So I think that there will be like a natural pushback against all of that. But you talk about blurring the lines, I think, between reality and the fiction. That's where it's so damaging to younger people.
Yeah.
Because you never grew up understanding there was a line or which side was which, right? So if you grow up thinking that everything you're doing on the internet is real, like there was some study, I don't want to quote like the numbers, but it basically alluded to the fact that 10 minutes looking at TikTok Reels will wire a child's brain more than a year of listening to some message that their parents are trying to tell them, because it's not conscious.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, whatever is being delivered to them over and over again is being done in a palatable, quick way that teaches something subconsciously that you can't ever impart to them. It's really terrifying. Interesting that we ended up talking about this. It's one of my favorite topics, totally unintended. But
as a parent, what do you like? How do you said you're doing a lot of research to prepare for, I guess, your children growing up into that world. What is your current view on it? How are you handling it? Do you have advice for parents?
Well, I'll tell you that the first step was realizing that I have the same problem that I'm afraid that my kids have, and it's like a really hard pill to swallow. So the first thing I did was I removed all social media from my own phone, which sounds really easy, but I host Twitter Spaces every day, and I'm theoretically on social media. So I have to have a second phone that I turn on just for hosting spaces that has Twitter on it. And so having other people help more to manage the social media side, somehow forcing myself to not read the comments.
Yeah.
And to not engage with what's inevitably some AI or bot or troll or something, or to become, I guess, emotionally driven by the comments. Yeah. So it's like you almost have to do the experiment on yourself.
Yeah.
Before you can realize. But I mean, the only advice I can give to parents, and I'm afraid I won't be able to take it myself, is just delay it as long as possible. Yeah. You know, I think if you can find, and once again, this is for myself for the future, if you can find like-minded parents who your kids are friends with, it's almost, I don't remember what the exact meme was, but it was so impactful to me when I read it. It was like, your child is only as strong, or your child's self-worth is only as strong as like the friend who has the most internet access. Something to that effect. It was like, it doesn't matter what you do if your kid can go over to their friend's house and sit on TikTok with them all day. Oh, and going back to the men, it was video games and access to porn.
Oh yeah,
that was so damaging. Sure. That was the two things that scientifically were rewiring the men's brain and making them weaker and not understand what was in the real world, because you have this ready access. I don't know about you, but I used to have to go to my neighbor's house, dig in his dad's closet when he wasn't home to find a Playboy to see a picture of a naked girl when I was a teenager, or stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning to see what might be on Cinemax, which we called Skinemax. For something really softcore, but the ready access to all of that is just destructive. It promotes unhealthy relationships, an unhealthy view on the relationship between males and females. All I would say is, like, there's going to be incredible, I think, social pressure to give your kids all of the things their friends have. Yeah. But you're rewiring them for a permanently damaged life and worldview.
If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.